crushing defeat at Isandlwana sent shockwaves through Britain, a humiliating blow to an empire unaccustomed to loss. Determined to reclaim dominance, a tide of reinforcements surged into Natal, fueling Lord Chelmsford's audacious plan for a second invasion of Zululand. By mid-June, he faced a new challenge. Sir Garnet Wolseley had been appointed to supersede his command, with strict orders from Her Majesty's government to bend to Wolseley's authority. Defiant, Chelmsford cast aside both these commands and Cetshwayo's desperate peace overtures, seizing the moment to strike while the Zulu forces reeled from their losses, his eyes fixed on redeeming his tarnished legacy. To restore his honor before Wolseley could strip him of command, Chelmsford amassed a formidable force: 2 cavalry regiments, 5 artillery batteries, and 12 infantry battalions, 1,000 regular cavalry, 9,000 disciplined infantry, and 7,000 additional men armed with 24 guns, including the British Army's first ever Gatling gun battery, a fearsome new weapon of war. Despite orders to halt, on June 3rd, the second invasion lumbered toward Ulundi, its slow advance a calculated gamble. King Cetshwayo, clinging to hopes of peace, held back from striking the British's exposed supply lines, leaving the path to confrontation wide open. Consequently, the British advance was unopposed. As the force advanced, Cetshwayo dispatched envoys from Ulundi to the British. These envoys reached Chelmsford on the 4th of June with the message that Cetshwayo wished to know what terms would be acceptable to cease hostilities. Chelmsford sent a message back with the British terms in writing. By the 16th, the slow advance was quickened by the news that Wolseley was on his way to Natal to take command. On the 28th of June, Chelmsford's column was a mere 17 miles away from Ulundi and had established a supply depot. When Sir Garnet Wolseley arrived in Cape Town, Wolseley had sent a message to Chelmsford ordering him not to undertake any serious actions against the Zulus. Chelmsford had no intention of letting Wolseley stop him from making a last effort to restore his reputation and did not reply. A second message was sent on the 30th of June, which said the following: "Concentrate your force immediately and keep it concentrated. Undertake no serious operations with detached bodies of troops. Acknowledge receipt of this message at once and flash back your latest moves. I am astonished at not hearing from you." Wolseley, straining to assert command over Chelmsford, tried to join the 1st Division lagging along the coast behind the main advance. At the very time Wolseley was riding north from Durban, Chelmsford was preparing to engage the enemy. Wolseley's efforts to reach the front had been in vain. On the same day, Cetshwayo's representatives again appeared. These envoys bore some of what the British commander had demanded: oxen, a promise of guns, and a gift of elephant tusks. The peace was rejected as the terms had not been fully met. And Chelmsford turned the envoys away without accepting the elephant tusks and informed them that the advance would only be delayed 1 day to allow the Zulus to surrender 1 regiment of their army. Cetshwayo, now with the invading enemy in sight, knew no Zulu regiment would surrender. So he sent a further 100 white oxen from his own herd, along with Prince Napoleon's sword, which the Zulu had taken in the skirmish in which the prince had been killed. The Zulu Umbonambi regiment guarding the approaches to the White Umfolozi River, where the British were camped, refused to let the oxen pass, deeming it a useless gesture, seeing as it was impossible to meet all Chelmsford's demands. Fighting was inevitable. On the 3rd of July, with negotiations having broken down, Colonel Buller led a cavalry force across the river to scout out the ground beyond. Following orders, a party of Zulus was seen herding goats near the Amaka stream, and troopers moved to round them up. On a hunch, Buller gave an order for them to stop and prepare to fire from the saddle and to not dismount under any circumstance. His instinct proved right. over 3,000 Zulus rose from the long grass at that moment. 3 troopers were shot dead by the Zulus, and Buller ordered his men to retire. As they dashed back to the river, their crossing was covered by the Transvaal Rangers on the opposite bank. This incident had placed the entire reconnaissance in grave danger. But Buller's alertness and leadership saved them from annihilation. Chelmsford was now convinced the Zulus wanted to fight and replied to Wolseley's third message, informing him that he would indeed retreat to the 1st Division if the need arose, and that he would be attacking the Zulus the next day. That evening, Chelmsford issued his orders. The British, having learned a lesson at Isandlwana, would take no chances meeting the Zulu army in the open with their normal line of battle, such as the thin red line. He formed his infantry into a large hollow square, with mounted troops covering the sides and rear. Neither wagon lagers nor trenches would be used to convince both the Zulus and critics that a British square could beat them fairly in the open. The British force included 2 Gatling guns and several cannons. Within the square were headquarters staff, No. 5 Company of the Royal Engineers, led by Lieutenant Chard, the 2nd Natal Native Contingent, a rear guard of 2 squadrons of the 17th Lancers, and a troop of Natal Native Horse. No Zulus in any numbers had been sighted by 8 a.m., so the Frontier Light Horse was sent forth to provoke the enemy. The mounted troops by the stream opened fire from the saddle in an attempt to trigger a premature charge before retreating back to the main British force. The Zulu army, under the command of Ntshingwayo kaMahole Khoza, around 15,000 strong, now stood in a horseshoe shape encircling the northeast and southern sides of the square. They were made up of both veterans and novices, with varying degrees of confidence. The British were ready, and the Zulu troops faced concentrated fire. Zulu regiments had to charge forward directly into massed rifle fire, non-stop fire from the Gatling guns, and artillery fire at point-blank range. Charges were made by the Zulus in an attempt to get within close range, but they could not prevail against the British fire. There were several casualties within the square to Zulu marksmen, but the British firing did not waver, and no warrior was able to get within 30 yards of the British ranks. The Zulu reserve force now rose and charged against the southwest corner of the square. 9-pounders tore great chunks out of this body, while the infantry opened fire. The speed of the charge made it seem as if the Zulu reserves would get close enough to engage in hand-to-hand combat. But no warrior reached the British ranks. After half an hour of concentrated fire from the artillery, the Gatling guns, and thousands of British riflemen, the Zulu military power was broken. British casualties were 10 killed and 87 wounded, while nearly 500 Zulu dead were counted around the square. Another 1,000 or more were wounded. Chelmsford ordered the cavalry to mount, and the 17th Lancers, 1st King's Dragoon Guards, colonial cavalry, native horse, and 2nd Natal Native Contingent charged the now fleeing Zulus. The pursuit continued until not a live Zulu remained on the Mahlabathini plain, with soldiers killing the Zulu wounded in revenge for similar Zulu actions at Isandlwana. Chelmsford ordered the royal kraal of Ulundi to be burnt. The capital of Zululand burned for days. Chelmsford turned over command to Wolseley on the 15th of July at the fort at St. Paul's, leaving for home on the 17th. Chelmsford had partially salvaged his reputation and received a Knight Grand Cross of the Bath, largely because of Ulundi. However, he was severely criticized by the Horse Guards' investigation, and he would never serve in the field again. Cetshwayo, the Zulu king, was captured on the 28th of August, 1879, and taken into exile in the Cape Colony. The British established a regime in Zululand considered to be sympathetic to Britain and withdrew from Zululand.